These are some wholesome stories, because sometimes life is hard, and you want to feel good. Very wholesome story. When I was 12, me and my brother were told to go upstairs, and do not come downstairs until told. The next week, my father went to Cyprus to this amazing job, where he would get paid 6 figures and we would have a lovely life. After a few months he stops talking to me on Messenger. After a few more months, I start seeing things disappearing from the house, like jewelry and spare furniture. We move house later that year, in one day, to a small bungalow on my mum's friend's farm. We don't have anything to do besides go to school and watch TV, but we get dinner, and for my birthday my mum took me to Pizza Express, because it's my favorite, but she wasn't hungry for some reason. I'm now 19, and it turns out my father lied, and was in fact in so much debt, that the police came to our house, to arrest him, and that's why we were sent upstairs. This 6-figure job was my father running away to another country and leaving my mother alone with the tens of thousands of pounds of debt. So she started selling things like her precious jewelry. We had to move house in a hurry, and we could only afford TV and dinner. The Pizza Express was my mum using a voucher that got me a pizza and drink for £10, and even though she was stressed and hungry, she only had free tap water. I can't believe how my mum handled this intense shitstorm whilst giving me and my brother such lovely memories of laughs at dinner and going for a walk to the park as a holiday. Unbelievable. My hero. Friend story. At university, a friend of his met a girl in a club and they decided to head out together back to his place. It was one of those 4-5 bedroom Victorian house students sometimes rent in the UK. Anyway, they get back to his, and he realizes he's not got his keys and the house is empty as everyone else stayed out at the club. Bugger. But this potentially fatal obstacle doesn't deter our protagonist. With a belly of Dutch courage and his massive intellect, he sets about forming a plan to break into his own home. Then bam, he realizes that a window at the front of the house might be still open. But this isn't a regular window. These houses have a bay window, like a half hexagon that juts out, with a large bottom window and small flat window at the top, may 9 inches high, with a sliding latch that can be used to prop open the window during the day. The latch itself has small holes that hook onto a small rod, maybe half an inch tall, at the base of the window. It's about 6 feet to the base of the flap. Sure enough, it's propped open, so he fancies his chances. Problem is, he can't get the leverage to push himself up and through this gap. Again, he weighs his options. So sure enough, he asks his new acquaintance for a boost. She dutifully obliges, takes the knee, and clasps her hands together. If anything, she's as keen as he is to get inside. So he pushes off her hands hard and manages to get his entire head and torso through this flap. So his center of gravity is directly on top of that tiny rod that keep the top flap open. Ignoring this discomfort, he then realizes how epic a drop there is on the other side of the window. If he leans forwards and slides in, it'll be a straight 6-foot drop onto his head on the other side. But it's either that or give up. And he's come this far, so he decides to commit to the maneuver and style it out at the bottom with a sick ninja roll. And that will get him even more cred than merely breaking in, right? So he commits this dive completely, full body weight forwards, arms outstretched above his head ready to absorb the weight of his body and deftly curl his knees up, complete this deft acrobatic move, and go round and open the door. If it wasn't for that damn little rod. As he commits, the rod snags first his belt, then jeans, then underwear, so that at the same time as he descends, every layer on the bottom half of his body remain exactly at the entrance at the window. Then, as they reach his ankles, they catch entirely. His body is then swung upside down like pendulum into the window with an almighty crack, where he dangles. The girl, still in position from giving the boost, stands up to see this guy is pinned upside down just inside his own home. Crown jewels pressed against the inside of the window, completely unable to free himself. She gazes as what must look like a hot dog and 2 meatballs slammed against a glass table meet her at eye height. There he remains for several minutes, before she has to leap up and unhook his trousers and underwear, when he clatters to the floor, completely forgetting the need to break his fall with anything other than his face. Somehow he gathers his composure and readjusts himself, and lets her in for the night. They are married now. My dad kept a journal every day from the day my sister was born, 2 years older than me, until I was around 15. Most of the time it was just the facts of what everyone did that day and what the weather was. I remember him setting us down in the home office every so often to rehash what we each had done in the previous days if he hadn't had time to type up entries the few days before. I never really thought much of it at the time, but now that I'm in my mid-20s and have a printed copy of the full journal, I now see the full value of it. I can turn to any random date and know exactly what we did. It is full of so many things I didn't remember, and also with things I didn't realize was going on. There are several times I'm dad references money issues that I wasn't aware of. It's sometimes sad to read how excited he was about several get-rich-quick schemes and knowing how it didn't pan out for him. It's also filled with so many funny little stories too. One of my favorites is when I was around 3 or 4 and I was saying a prayer before dinner and I prayed, "Thanks for nothing." And my parents told me I was under no circumstances ever allowed to pray that prayer again. I don't think my dad realized at the time how special it would be to have those journals so many years later, but I truly wouldn't trade them for anything. If you enjoy this video, consider giving it a like and subscribing. And now for our feature presentation, an all-time feel-good classic by user Arhona. Just about every time I see someone I stop. I kind of got out of the habit in the last couple of years, moved to a big city and all that. My girlfriend wasn't too stoked on the practice. Then some shit happened to me that changed me, and I'm back to offering rides habitually. If you would indulge me, it is long story and has almost nothing to do with hitchhiking other than happening on a road. This past year I have had 3 instances of car trouble. A blowout on a freeway, a bunch of blown fuses and an out of gas situation. All of them were while driving other people's cars, which, for some reason, makes it worse on an emotional level. It makes it worse on a practical level as well, what with the fact that I carry things like a jack and extra fuses in my car, and know enough not to park facing downhill on a steep incline with less than a gallon of fuel. Anyway, each of these times this happened I was disgusted with how people would not bother to help me. I spent hours on the side of the freeway waiting, watching roadside assistance vehicles blow past me for AAA to show. The 4 gas stations I asked for a gas can at told me that they couldn't loan them out for my safety, but I could buy a really shitty 1-gallon one with no cap for $15. It was enough each time to make you say things like this country is going to hell in a handbasket. But you know who came to my rescue all 3 times? Immigrants. Mexican immigrants. None of them spoke a lick of the language. But one of those dudes had a profound effect on me. He was the guy that stopped to help me with a blowout with his whole family of 6 in tow. I was on the side of the road for close to 4 hours. Big Jeep, blown rear tire, had a spare but no jack. I had signs in the windows of the car, big signs that said, "Need a jack," and offered money. No dice. Right as I'm about to give up and just hitch out there, a van pulls over and dude bounds out. He sizes the situation up and calls for his youngest daughter who speaks English. He conveys through her that he has a jack, but it is too small for the Jeep, so we will need to brace it. He produces a saw from the van and cuts a log out of a downed tree on the side of the road. We rolled it over, put his jack on top, and bam, in business. I start taking the wheel off, and, if you can believe it, I broke his tire iron. It was one of those collapsible ones, and I wasn't careful, and I snapped the head I needed clean off. No worries. He runs to the van, gives it to his wife, and she is gone in a flash, down the road to buy a tire iron. She is back in 15 minutes. We finish the job with a little sweat and cussing. Stupid log was starting to give, and I'm a very happy man. We are both filthy and sweaty. The wife produces a large water jug for us to wash our hands in. I tried to put a 20 in the man's hand, but he wouldn't take it, so I instead gave it to his wife as quietly as I could. I thanked them up one side and down the other. I asked the little girl where they lived, thinking maybe I could send them a gift for being so awesome. She says they live in Mexico. They are here so mommy and daddy can pick peaches for the next few weeks. After that they are going to pick cherries then go back home. She asks if I have had lunch, and when I told her no, she gave me a tamale from their cooler, the best tamale I have ever had. So, to clarify, a family that is undoubtedly poorer than you, me, and just about everyone else on that stretch of road, working on a seasonal basis, where time is money, took an hour or two out of their day to help some strange dude on the side of the road when people in tow trucks were just passing me by. Wow. But we aren't done yet. I thank them again and walk back to my car and open the foil on the tamale, cause I'm starving at this point. And what do I find inside? My $20 bill. I whirl around and run up to the van and the guy rolls his window down. He sees the $20 in my hand and just shaking his head no, like he won't take it. All I can think to say is por favor, por favor, por favor with my hands out. Dude just smiles, shakes his head, and, with what looked like great concentration, tried his hardest to speak to me in English. Today you, tomorrow me. Rolled up his window, drove away, his daughter waving to me in the rear view. I sat in my car eating the best tamale of all time and I just cried, like a little girl. It has been a rough year and nothing has broke my way. This was so out of left field I just couldn't deal. In the 5 months since I have changed a couple of tires, given a few rides to gas stations, and, once, went 50 miles out of my way to get a girl to an airport. I won't accept money. Every time I tell them the same thing, when we are through. Today you, tomorrow me. If you enjoy these videos please consider subscribing.